Yeah.
Because we got that. It's funny.
Okay.
That's how it goes.
Chair Yang, I am ready whenever you are.
2% raise over 2 years.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Thanks for being here with us tonight. So first things first, I'm going to take roll call real quick. Commissioner Shelton,
Here.
Commissioner Pesley,
Here.
Commissioner Huffman,
Here.
Commissioner Guzman,
Here.
Commissioner Benson.
Here.
All right, thank you guys so much for being here. So the next thing is we're gonna do, sorry, let me just pull up my agenda here real quick. Okay, so approval of the agenda for Thursday, January 9th, 2025. Can I get a motion for the approval?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. All right. Next, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for December 12th, 2024?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. All right, so moving on into regular business. Today we have a guest speaker. His name is Jeff Brooks. He'll be presenting to us about his organization and the work that they do. But I wanted to see if Commissioner Shelton would give a little context before we begin, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for adding him to the agenda, Chair Yang. Appreciate that. So I don't know how I got acquainted with Jeff Brooks. Somebody introduced me. I can't remember who it was, but somebody reputable, I assume. And we had a very good conversation about this Catalyst Cities project that Jeff works on, and how the work that they do is able to really kickstart civic conversations and civic initiatives. And so I thought this might be something that we could connect to the work we've been doing on housing. So I sent Jeff our housing report, and we talked a little bit about some of the stuff we've been doing, and thought it might make sense for him to kind of talk about his project and how we might be able to tap into it. So this would just be an intro level conversation, but I personally think there could be some interesting opportunities here, and so that's why I asked to have this on the agenda.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is, I think this is a really great opportunity for us to learn and to engage. You know, we're working on the visibility initiative as well, and we're looking to engage the community more. So I think that what we learned from Jeff and his organization, it will be beneficial for us. And of course, if any commissioners, if you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand and ask them. Otherwise, we will also share Jeff's contact information afterwards as well. So you guys will all have direct contact with him. But without further ado, do any of the commissioners have any questions before we begin?
Can Michael hear us now? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, awesome. So Jeff, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Thank you, Chair Yang and Chair Shelton, members of the commission. I'm really excited to be here and to explain a little bit about the project, American One Room Catalyst Cities, that we are looking to deploy in Green Bay. I have a presentation that I shared ahead of time. I think
Yes.
Andrea helped me with. I'm not sure if you'll have access to that currently. I can also share my screen if that's easier. Maybe
Yes.
I can. I'm not sure if I can.
I was just going to say, I emailed it to everyone, but also I gave you permission to share your screen.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yep.
But that means we won't be able to see the pinball machine.
And a little distraction in the background, maybe. Okay, let me know if y'all can see this.
Yes.
Yep.
Great, okay. So first I'm going to get into a little bit of who we are and why I'm here and what we've done in the past. So I'm Jeff Brooks. I'm the director of America in One Room for the Helena Group Foundation. And Helena Group Foundation takes on projects of global consequence. We identify major underlying root problems, and we try to address those problems with specific projects. And one of those projects we put together is called America in One Room. And America in One Room seeks to address the underlying coordination issues that we see in democracies to help democratic organizations, institutions, and societies work better together to address our most pressing issues. And we view this as a force multiplier for global, national problems. And what that looks like in practice is that American Women promotes civic engagement, and that attracts attention by helping citizens experience democracy the way that it was really meant to. It was meant to be a humanizing, constructive, empowering, and sometimes messy process, but one that they engage in actively. And what you'll see on this slide is what that looks like for us recently. So we started this project in 2019. We brought together a representative group from across the country, and that project was focused on dislodging this narrative that was becoming common, I think you're all going to know once I say it, of intractable polarization, where we are incapable of working together because our differences are just too great in this country. And we showed in that project that that is not the case, that given good information and time to actually think and consider deeply issues that are important to the public, that members of the public, everyday Americans, are more than capable and actively willing to engage across the aisle and work to find collaborative solutions and a mutual understanding with their fellow citizens. We took that and we continued, and that experience drew engagement from the broader media. So you can see we made the cover of the New York Times. It's been heralded by former presidents, including Obama and Clinton, as an important lesson for the nation. And we also got a couple of other things that happened during that process. We get experts in the room. You'll see that kind of down here in the bottom left. And we also create actionable data for politicians, political groups, and the like in the public on top of that. So you'll see that here. Our most recent project was held over the summer. We did a youth vote focused project. And that was several hundred members of the soon-to-be first-time voters in the 2024 election. And that was covered by the ABC, Good Morning America, NBC Nightly News, and the Wall Street Journal, among other organizations. So why am I here, though? My background is in state government, and something that comes across pretty clearly when I talk to different members of the executive branches and legislatures across the country is that local political discourse is breaking down. And I'll tell you the story, and I don't think it's going to be news to y'all, that the local forums, the town halls that used to be constructive sources of public engagement are increasingly contentious, divisive, and bordering on possibly dangerous for those who engage in them. Mutual distrust is spread as a result of these bad public interactions that gain a lot of notoriety. And if you're actually present for them, vocal fringe groups or fringe voices tend to be the ones that dominate. And it pushes out all people from the middle who are rationally disengaged as a result. They don't want to engage in this kind of forum, and so they step back from public engagement, civic engagement. You kind of see that all over the country. And the result, I think, for people who do engage in policy is that it can be exhausting and draining because it's so much more work to get anything done. Political will is so much harder to coalesce. We think there's a way around that with this process or with a series of processes that have been growing and maturing over the last several years. And that's what we're looking to do at a city and county level in this country is revitalize local democracy through inclusive deliberative practices. And there's a line on this slide that I really want to highlight for this group, and it's the last one, that the participants who come through experience the dignity of their neighbor's life experience and are changed by it. So they walk in with their own opinions, and everyone gets a chance to share their experience, consider deeply the policies that we're examining. And what happens is they tend to, in the group setting, break down their own opinions and reform them with this greater context that they didn't have before, because we bring together these representative samples that put them in contact with individuals from their communities they might not talk to otherwise, or likely would not talk to otherwise. And that extra context becomes deeply meaningful to them. As a result, the process kind of leverages this innate human superpower to want to connect with our neighbors. We don't want to be alone. We want to be able to get through things together. We really, really want that. And I think I walk into cities around the country and I see people hungry for community and increasingly desirous of government that feels like it's working and a place in their community and an opinion that matters. One of the things that comes out of this process is what some academics have termed a civic awakening of the participants. They think that not only do they know more about these topics than they knew before, they're more curious to learn more about these topics once they leave. They're more interested in starting conversations about these topics with their friends, families, neighbors who haven't been here. They share those experiences with other people because of knock-on effects of something to talk about in the community. And they think that they have an opinion that matters. I think that's one of the things we saw in the problem statement before, is that people step back because they often think, who am I? Why does my opinion matter? Why should I be here? And the truth is that as a citizen, as a voting citizen, or as a member of the electorate, they have every reason to be here. And they are often not involved or not invited into the conversation the same way that we are doing with our participants. And it provides them, I think, a powerful personal experience, but also a powerful experience of community. And that's something that I think we would really like to replicate at the local level. There are several key elements to this project. I'm going to give you a high-level idea of them here. I'm happy to drill into them more if you have questions here or afterwards. And that looks like these 4 elements. The first is political sponsors. I've gone around the country and spoken with mayors' offices and city councils. And what we're looking for primarily is political partners. Someone who's in an office that is empowered by legislation, has policy authority, who is engaged or interested in engaging in this a deliberative process to determine policy direction and to take an action as a result of the data that we come up with. And that's a big part of our filtering process for how we landed on Green Bay. We met with Mayor Demps' office, and he was very open to a process along these lines where we could build a representative sample, examine deeply several policy areas, and as part of that discussion, we asked them, the office, if they had a sense of which topic area they would like us to examine with the first run through of this with the deliberative body, and he recommended housing and homelessness, which is how, through a series of handshakes, I've ended up in this meeting today. The next element is supporting partners. So a big part of this project is to build durable local capacity. We really want to set up a chapter that is a gold standard case to show other cities how they could set up something similar using local resources and integrate some of the actors who are present in their community, and then find a pathway for continuing to develop those resources. I view those, and we view those, as usually having a local media partner, somebody who can help us get the word out and keep coverage of the process, as well as university research support. All of our projects have university research support. We do it through Stanford University and the Democracy Lab. We're a major partner of theirs. And then the idea is that these partners create an ecosystem of supporting resources and integrated lines of communication across the community that can help them address future issues going forward. So once you have a little bit of muscle memory on how to access the policy specialists at the university, you can keep going back to that as the deliberative body going forward. The core of the process is a representative sample, and you may be familiar with citizen assemblies. And this project you can think of as a very large citizen assembly. It's envisioned currently at being several hundred people. All the projects that we've done historically have been representative samples of several hundred people or more. And the reason why is that, one, you get more granular data and more statistically valid data at a certain sample size, right, using a certain density of people. But at the local level, it's because 300 people in Green Bay is a lot of people in Green Bay. And if you can get that sort of community awareness and constructive working across aisles, I think that can be a potent force and an ongoing force for the city to have access to going forward. So that's the heart of the projects, and everything we do is within is in service of this representative sample, giving them the resources, the time, the tools, and the guidance to act in their own interest and to speak with their own voice. And then our group on top of that provides essentially an expert guidance role. To give you a sense of kind of where we are in this process in Green Bay, there's a kind of a 5-phase program here. We're towards the end of discovery. I think I'm still, daisy chaining handshakes to see who are the active stakeholders in this area. Are there stakeholders that should be at the table who have not historically been at the table? And that's one of the big benefits that we offer to the political offices that we work with, is that the deliberative body offers an opportunity for organizations or for offices to put the will of the people and the clearly stated voice of the people at the center of policy solutions, and hopefully in the process put aside any differences that offices or parties might have had leading into those deliberations, so that they have clarity and unity of policy action afterwards. After that, we're looking to do fundraising locally. I envision doing this over the next quarter or so. We have national donors that would fund kind of the administrative side for my team. We're looking to have local donors fund all of the local efforts, so local capacity, so local dollars stay local. That's the idea. And it's funding capacity building in Green Bay with Green Bay dollars or with Brown County dollars. And then there's pre-event activities we'd have to do, deliberations, and then sustainment going forward, with the idea of the deliberations happening at some point in Q3, Q4 of 2025. And that's what I have. I'm happy to dig deeper into any of these. And again, I really appreciate the Commission's time today to talk a little bit about this project. I'm excited to hear any feedback you may have.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing all of that information with us, Jeff. I think it was super helpful just to kind of get an idea of what you guys, what your organization does. But I'll open it up to the commissioners to see if anyone has any comments or questions. I have a few, but I'll wait until then.
So I have one thing I just kind of want to, and first of all, thank you for this, Jeff, and thanks for being here. I wanted to kind of prompt you to talk about something you and I talked about when we initially spoke, which is, one of the things that we've tried very hard to do in the Equal Rights Commission is to elicit community participation and community voices. There's a lot of impediments to that. The people who are most on the margins and struggle with housing and homelessness are the ones who are least likely to have the capacity to come to Equal Rights Commission meeting or to speak out in some kind of public forum. Could you talk about some of the resources that are available to facilitate that on your end that would help us in that effort?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a really important idea, right? I cannot in good faith say that I have given you an opportunity to join us if you are not able to join, right? If we meet on the weekend and your family needs your income working that weekend in order for you to pay the bills and put food on the table, then it's not an option for you to come if I don't compensate you for your time. And the truth is that we think that citizens' time is valuable. They think their time is valuable. And so we have historically compensated our participants for engaging with us. And we do they tend to be fairly intense engagements. We tend to be for 3 days of deliberations. The ones we've done in the past have been kind of weekend-long events. We've had for the national ones, we fly people in from outside, from all over the country. So we coordinate that travel. In addition to the per diem compensation, we set aside budget for additional resources for those who really need them, if there's a demonstrated need. We've had some creative applications of that in the past, working with some excellent partners over at the National Opinion Research Center. The example I use for this is we had a woman who ran a small dairy, and she was not able to attend if someone couldn't milk her cows while she was doing deliberations. And so we arranged for someone to do that for her. We will really go that extra mile to make sure that the sortition process does invite in a truly representative sample of the population. We think it's critical their voices are there. It's critical to the public perception of the project. And so that building of a really gold standard representative sample and then enabling those participants to join is material to us for sure.
Thank you, Jeff, for presenting this. As somebody who, I'm a person of color, I've experienced difficulties being able to speak up in places that are not necessarily safe for us. I really love the fact that you have a lot of, you look for numbers when it comes to the representation sample. This is one of the first times I actually hear that that's what you invite, right? Instead of it being the same set of faces making the decisions for everybody, you actually look out for a lot of different types of, for example, as a Latino, I'm completely different than a Salvadorian, I'm completely different than a Puerto Rican. We have completely different ideas. So that is for me something that catches my attention, but I also wanted to ask, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing when you present this to other people, other bodies? Pushback.
One of the, well, if I can pull on the representative sample
Yes.
thread a little bit, that ends up being one of the challenges, is making sure that we have partners in the area that can help us attract and include in the sample the diversity that we really need for the sample. And that can be hard if you're working with like legacy polling institutions, or if they might not have really granular coverage at a county level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we're actively mindful of, and I think that for the sample size that we're looking at in Brown County, that we are likely to have to do at least sample augmentation of our own on the ground.
Okay.
This is something we're likely to have to do. When it comes to other objections that I get in the room, if I were given a term, I don't tend to get strong ones. I tend to get, candidly, hesitation around, if I'm talking to a group that is in the trenches, a nonprofit in the space, they are naturally hesitant, right? Like that. Can you actively get change? Is there something? Can we get the kind of momentum that we're looking for as a result of this process? And I hear that as a real question. I get questions on other groups that might be involved. I think that with a density of the public, that those are entirely overcomable. I really do.
Okay.
I think what's harder is maybe getting people who have not been at the table before, who do not do this work, or who think it might be in their best interest not to engage on some level, to the table. And when I've talked to other groups in Green Bay who work in the space, I am mindful of ensuring that we're able to attract partners in the commercial space, in the construction space, that sort of idea in order to engage, effectively, and I think that's something I'm very interested in doing.
Jeff, and that speaks highly of you. I think that the fact that you think of all those things is something that you'd be surprised a lot of people don't think of. So thank you for even bringing up the fact that you go to maybe even places that maybe others might not. Like right away when you were saying construction, I was thinking barbershops. We have a lot of community here in Green Bay, particularly that own barbershops that are completely different cultures, and you could absolutely get people that be delighted to come and speak their truths and what they're living in their community. Because like I mentioned, just because you're one demographic doesn't mean that that's your reality. Like it's so different for even just where you come from, So thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I also want to address something that you said before on finding your voice in these rooms.
Yes.
It is non-trivial. I have to see it with the youth vote, was an amazing thing to see, but I see it with adults in every project we do. There's a period in the beginning where it's really tough. You show up that first day and everyone's got the kind of first day jitters, and it takes a little bit for people to kind of relax in. And part of the process that we do is we put them into into small groups. And the small group discussion groups are the ones they go back to on a regular basis. There's some swapping if we use an online tool for it, but mostly you have the same group you go back to, and they get comfortable in that group. One of the things that they do is they agree as a group on questions for the experts that we have that we bring in about these topics, and it puts them on the same side. Everyone in the group has to agree on the question that they're going to go and bring to the expert. No gotcha questions. Make it through that process. Doesn't matter who what kind of arrangement of people you have in the room. They're going to come up with a question that works for them, and they learn to work. They can see that they can work together. And I think this is something that this process is really hopeful for. Is that a little bit of momentum begets momentum,
Yes.
and a little bit of trust begets trust. And I think that that's something I've seen in the past. And so what I've seen people do is walk in hesitant to share their voice, trained maybe that they should not speak up in certain situations, used to being not heard,
Right.
and overcoming that themselves.
Yes, thank you. And actually, the fact that you brought up that you guys go into small groups, that's so good that you're speaking about this. I'm glad this is being recorded because I'm going to share it. And no one, if it ever does take off, only because that's actually when I worked at the schools, when we were working with the population they called the most problematic, or there's always terms. It only worked when you brought them to small enclosed small circles. When it's the big audience, they would not give their opinion, right? They were taught, there's many reasons why people do that, but as soon as you bring them into small rooms, they're able to actually speak what their mind is, they're able to talk to the people around them and realize that it's a safe place. So even you bringing it up on your own, that makes me know that this is legit. You know what you guys are doing. These are these are literally strategies that we use even in the schools to get these students engaged. So congratulations on what you have done.
Thank you so much. I wish I could say that it was due to our hard work.
Sure.
We really are blessed to have amazing partners. Jim Fishkin and Larry Diamond have been in this space for decades, literally longer than I've been alive. And what they've seen in hundreds of implementations in dozens of countries around the world, to the point where some of the I think it's 2 or 3 countries have written deliberative processes into their constitutions as a requirement for passing national legislation, or like changes the constitution, that sort of idea. That this process really can work to define better, more inclusive policies that change the trajectories of nations. And I think that Green Bay can certainly do that. And I think that Green Bay is in a position to show other cities in the U.S. how to do that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. I have 2 questions. First, very small. Are you looking for a representative sample of Brown County or Green Bay specifically? And second question. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You can answer that one.
If I could take them one at a time, that'd be great. So I walked in thinking that we would focus on city level implementation, and that's why I named it Catalyst Cities. But part of the structure of the design of the project, when I designed this entire project, was to require structural bipartisanship, multi-partisanship at the onset. So what I wanted to do was walk into a city or an area, a municipality, that had a political sponsor, of one party, and then they would bring in a political sponsor of a different party to show that there's an agreement, bipartisan agreement to work on these issues. And when I said, I'll be honest, I'm very blunt when I was approaching cities, because the downside risk of not having that off the bat, not being clear about what that means off the bat, is that the further down the road you go, if you were to convene a representative sample and the last man decide, actually, I wouldn't like these results, no thank you, you'll do more damage to the community. So our thought was to, when I was talking to another member of the, another interest group that I spoke with, they recommended possibly opening the scope from beyond just Green Bay to include Brown County more broadly. They thought maybe there were more resources there that could be driven towards housing and homelessness issues. They also thought that that provided an advantageous bipartisan avenue. And so that's something that I think that we're actively exploring. I have not had a meeting with the executive commissioner's office yet, but or the county executive's office yet, but my intention is to do that.
Thanks. Yeah, there are big differences between the county and the city when we're talking about demographics, so, yeah.
It's true.
But what was my other question? Oh, you had this on the slide, but I'm hoping you can explain more. What happens when we're done talking about housing with this group? Is there another topic that you bring them back for, or is it you're out of here?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Our goal was to walk in, and when we found a city that was willing and a topic that was relevant to the population, we figured that having that a bit predefined for the deliberative body, the representative sample, was helpful. Make it as easy as possible to kind of onboard them and shepherd them through a process that we're used to doing. But ultimately, this deliberative body, once we build the sample, is a resource that I think that Green Bay should continue to use. And it's our intention that we would empower them to keep doing that. And our thought was that we would help them, help the representative body, once we have it together, choose the next topic that they find important, and that the population can then boil up the issues that are really relevant to them as a body. So it will be one of the first times we try that process. Normally we walk in and have topics pre-selected. We use polling data to inform those topics, just like we would use public polling data to inform the policy options within those topics. But this is a bit more generative at the city and county level, and we think that could be empowering for the deliberative panel.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Forgive me if you covered this and I missed it. When you were talking about raising funds, could you quantify directionally the cost you see with this? What kind of investment are you looking for?
So we ballparked the cost for this project between like 1.25 and 1.5 million. And we would look for about half of that to come from local resources. But maintaining so a lot of the startup, almost the vast majority of the startup cost, or a big chunk of it, is building the sample and then compensating the individuals for participating. But once that sample is built, once we've done the sample building, I think that maintaining it is significantly less expensive over time. So once it's established, I think the city could, or the county could, continue to maintain it with donations locally. And the idea is that would be kind of a self-perpetuating idea. So that's the general ballpark we're looking at. Included in that budget are some noteworthy capacity building ideas. One of them is a fellowship program, and so a lot of this is going to come down to what partners we have we're working with, and the implementation decisions of some of the program structure. But I envision a fellowship in the mayor's office, a fellowship or similar type program at the university to help with support there. And the idea is just not to hand any of the political offices that we work with an unfunded mandate. The idea is that if there's somebody to pull down block grants for this program going forward, then the fellowship is intended to empower someone to fill out those block grants. So we're not just hoping that someone else can do it when we leave.
Thank you.
Jeff, have you guys worked with other cities that are similar to Green Bay's, size? And also, what do people use the data or the stats for afterwards? What are the benefits of it, and what can we as a commission use that for, if you have any ideas? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, happy to answer the question. So we have worked primarily on national level projects in the past. So those are the offices we were used to working with, those are the samples that we're used to working with. So this would be our first city level implementation for us. Now Stanford University, I think that the Deliberative Democracy Lab has done local implementations in the past. They also tend to work, I think, mostly nationally, but they've worked with commercial groups or bodies. They've worked with big tech companies, that sort of idea. They've worked with the Nobel Commission to deploy projects for them. So there's different level or sizes of groups that our partners have experience working with in the past, but it would be our first city level deployment. What could you use the data for once you have it? So what's interesting about the data that we produce is it's different than regular polling data. And what you'll find, and maybe you've also done this, I might be guilty of this, is if someone asks you a question, you probably have an answer for it or an opinion on it, whether you did or did not, before you received the question, right? And that's one of the downsides to regular opinion polling, is that it's going to ask you a question that you may or may not have an answer to, and very few people will respond, no opinion. But the people who, the data that we collect is deep data. It's from populations that have had a real opportunity to consider deeply the policies that are available to them. It's a good metric or benchmark for how larger populations would feel about these topics had they had, or if they had the time and if they were educated on these topics, if they had the time to deeply consider them. And then what's interesting about a large group, I think, in a confined area or in an area the size of Green Bay, is that you're likely, ideally, is that you're one or two handshakes away at most from someone who's in the sample and able to, you can go talk to those people and kind of engage in that level. So it shows political groups and leaders directional areas of opportunity that might not be obvious to them otherwise. And what you'll see in the data is that there are surprising, baskets of solutions that are appealing to the population overall, that are not well captured by either the red or blue camp, and that it gives an idea of what that basket of opportunity might look like.
Awesome, thank you. And then another question that I had was, I see that there's phases. What does the timeline look like for that? I know that we'd be the first city to participate if we decided to, but can you give us kind of an idea of what that would look like? Would that be like a couple months, a year? Would it go into 2026?
My thought is that the deliberations would happen over several weekends with several weeks in between them. So once we start, say we have the first one, and this is just very rough, kind of back of the napkin idea. If we were to have the first deliberations happen sometime towards the end of Q3, we probably have the next round of them in Q4. And then it finishes up in Q1 of the following year. That's kind of the idea. The goal is to have them happen over a long enough time that people have the ability to engage. We build a sense of community around this body. It can't be too long that people forget things in between the time they were there. Life is busy. Our attention is always in short in high demand. But yeah, they have time to really consider them. And the idea is that the panel kind of exists. And is supported by digital tooling, that sort of thing, in those times when they're not meeting in person.
Jeff, I have another question here. So, and obviously we're not asking you to commit to this, and we haven't even had the conversation, but the Equal Rights Commission could be the political sponsor for this, potentially? Or would it need to be the mayor's office, or how would that work?
So, it's a question we have to kind of look into. I'm open to working with political sponsors that are efficient and are motivated and interested in the work and that idea. I'll be honest, I'm not sure what powers the commission is empowered with, so we'd have to kind of look into where could we act as a result. But short answer, very open to working with the commission if you all are interested in that.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me just clarify. The reason why I give a bit of qualification is that when we look at the policies that we can, that the the delivery body, the representative sample is supposed to analyze. It's really important that they are actionable policies, and that if we come out of the deliberations, that the offices that we work with are able to then go act in good faith on those policies that they have gotten. And what I think would be frustrating is if we were to walk out with, if we were just in the front end, we wouldn't walk in with policies that would create a wish list that is not actionable. So that's kind of the idea, is to make sure that we can, we have partners on, that are committed up front so that we can, act efficiently on policies that they examine.
Yeah, that makes sense, but I guess I'm thinking, to get something passed in Green Bay, we would have to get the city council to do it, right? So, would that be, would you do a political sponsor with the city council, or what the Equal Rights Commission can do? And by the way, you should ask us questions about what we do if
Right.
you're interested. But we're effectively kind of a platform, right? We can't pass, ordinances, but we do have a city council member on the, Joey Presley is on the city council. So we do have somebody on the city council that could say, introduce ordinances, we report to the city council, but, just so you know, we don't, we can't ameliorate complaints the way that, other equal rights commissions can in other cities and other states. So, so we have that role, but, I don't know if you could get the city council to agree to do this, but that would be great, but that would be interesting.
Yeah, so I think our goal would be if the city council is, the body best empowered to act, and we don't necessarily have to go to the one that has the greatest authority in the area. We can deal with policies that are, of substantial interest to the public, at maybe different levels of government. But ideally, we get, broad buy-in on the front end that, this process and that this idea broadly is, of political value. And I'm not, when I worked in the mayor's office, I was fair to say that, we require a political action. I'm not requiring upfront anyone to turn over, or any group to turn over, 100% of authority on, X, Y, or Z issue to this body, right? Their offices are empowered with power for a reason, and those office holders are, are leaders in their own right. But the idea is that they would take a meaningful political action as a result of the data, and I think that is a flexible enough ask to be attractive for most offices, I hope.
I mean, it was one of the things they asked when we presented the housing report. I remember some of the feedback we were getting from these council members was to have professionals guide us, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I don't know if it gets more professional than this. This is kind of great. It would be amazing to have this. So yeah, I don't see how it wouldn't be a good thing for our council to bipartisan work, right? Yeah.
Candidly, I think that part of my job as I go to kind of look to deeper into Green Bay is to meet with all of these offices. I think that that's my intention, is to meet at the city and the county level with the supervisor offices and the city council members' offices, and see if we can't build a real coalition around a new type of political listening.
So, I guess one kind of practical thing, it seems like we're kind of wrapping up here, but how would you like us to continue this conversation? Would it be helpful for us to have, say, one person from the commission be kind of a liaison? What makes sense if we're interested in continuing to think about supporting this?
So a commission liaison would be fantastically helpful. I think that even if we find that, even the is that there's a different political office for us to work with, we're very interested in having experts in policy, in housing, who can help us educate and create briefing materials for the public. So those are all opportunities that we have. Sorry, it's my 3-year-old. I'll be right there, Judy. Sorry.
No
No worries.
She was very excited about dinner. But yeah, that would be great. As I'm going through the discovery process, I would also sincerely appreciate any handshakes to or warm intros that you think are appropriate to other offices in the area. To be honest, I've gotten mostly this far through a lot of cold email outreach, and I am very impressed at Wisconsin's capacity to answer an email from a total stranger out of state. So I don't know if I'll keep getting lucky on that front.
Jeff, do we have access to your contact info? Has that been provided?
It's on the last slide of the slide deck, and it's also jeff@helena.org. I can I'm happy to share that in the chat as well.
Yeah, I can share that
Thank you.
with all the commissioners afterwards.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yep.
For everyone here, I also I've got a background in state government. I love one-on-one conversations. If you are at all interested in having any, or you can talk to me more, if you have other questions that you got that are just for you, whatever, I'm happy to talk to you all.
Yeah, Jeff, I'd love to have a little bit more in-depth conversation with you after this meeting. So I'll reach out and set up a meeting, and then I'll discuss with commissioners on what we'd like to do moving forward. But I mean, I really appreciate what your organization strives to do, and the whole concept of this this project that you developed. I really think that it's beneficial. So yeah, I will set up a meeting with you, and then that would be the next step. We'll talk about how to move forward from there. Commissioners, do any of you have any other? Sorry, my puppy is in the background crying, so excuse me. Commissioners, do you have any other comments or questions for Jeff? I know it's 6:23 now, so I just want to be mindful of Jeff's time.
We'll reach out.
Thank you so much for your time today. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. Sherry Shelton, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so much. Enjoy the rest of your night.
You too.
You promoted your chair.
He did. He was.
All right.
He was the original.
Any further discussions before we move on, commissioners? What are your thoughts? Do you have any questions that I can bring up to him during the one-on-ones? And you're also, all the commissioners are also free to meet with Jeff too and ask other questions as well.
I just think it's great. I appreciate John directing Jeff
Yes.
towards us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner Shelton. This is really great.
Yeah, I think this could be a really good opportunity for us to build civic capacity, especially around housing.
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely want to continue to be involved in this as well.
I'd like to see the possibility of like us being able to sponsor it, but you make a good point of like, would it have to go through council first, and would council even approve something like this? I want to remain hopeful about it, but like, I wonder if they would let it be around the issue of like housing, or if like we would have to shift gears and do it about something else, something that like, maybe more people, or, I don't know, I would love to see it around the issue of housing, but.
Go ahead.
I think council would be amenable to this potentially. I mean, yeah, there's a swath of political leanings, but I think people are generally open to feedback from the community, and this is a very direct feedback from the community. And housing, I think, is a bipartisan issue in the city.
I can't see why they would be against it, especially considering how very, like, they're making an emphasis on it being very bipartisan, so.
Yeah, I would like to look more into this organization though itself, just because they're bipartisan, but if there's any sort of like, they're funded by,
Of course.
probably whatever,
Yeah.
that can get caught up in council. That's the only thing I could see really being an issue.
That's a good point.
But I don't know, I think we're putting the cart ahead of the horse here, we need to do some more background, but I think there is some value in keeping this in the ERC if we can, so that we make sure that it does focus on housing, and then maybe trying to like keep city council involved and connected to it in a way. Like, I think this could really help with some of the things that we want to do in terms of pushing some reforms.
Right.
And I think it helps us in general because, like I mentioned in the last meeting, and that was not to the doom and gloom, I am getting pushback from the community that there was a lot of talk, a lot of, and then not action from the city, not necessarily this body. So this is a great invitation for us to do something. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, so I guess my next question for the commissioners is, would there be one or two commissioners who can commit some time on this? I know, John, you are the point person for housing, so we're focusing on housing. Would this be something that you can add onto your plate, or would you like another commissioner to take it on?
I mean, if anybody else wants to, I think that would be awesome. I'm happy to do it, though. I'm interested in this.
I'd be happy to work with you.
Okay, well, I'll have more conversations with each commissioner, and we'll look at how this might play out. I'll have another conversation with Jeff just to get more details, because I think it's still kind of broad, and so I think I just need a little bit more detail on like what our role would be, or if there's like a point person, what their role would be, if they're just a liaison, or if they're actually going to be doing actions and, doing groundwork, so.
Did you say groundwork?
All right, so any other comments, questions? Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next agenda item here. Give me 1 second. Sorry, can you guys hear my pup? Sorry. Okay. All right, so the next agenda item is for consideration of possible action on revised section, to revise section 12-11 Equal Rights Commission of the city's Chapter 12 Civil Rights Ordinance. So this is, again, this is from our previous meeting. I asked all the commissioners to kind of look through the ordinance and see if you have any input or any changes or additions that you'd like to see in this ordinance. And again, we don't have to completely look at the whole thing tonight. It's going to take some time, but does anyone have any comments right away today that we can kind of make sure we're keeping on our radar? And I know it was at the end of the year and it's a new year, so I know we might need some more time to kind of look through it. So no worries if there's no comments or questions right now. We can always get a motion to move it to the next meeting as well.
I mean, I would just like to we can always do that and continue this conversation, but I'd like to put on the table that, we should revise this so that we can hear complaints.
Yes, I agree with John.
I think that was my biggest thing when I was reading it.
Me too.
Yep, I agree with that as well. Okay, so that's good. I think that was one of my top items that I wanted to see. And I did talk to the mayor briefly this past year about that, and he wasn't opposed to that. He said, if we were able to come with a proposal, then they would review it, city council and city staff. So, so that's good that we have consensus on that. Otherwise, I'm going to ask for us to just take another few weeks here to look through it. That sounds like the top item, but I'm going to give you guys another few weeks to look at it in the next meeting. We will look into action steps to implement that and see where we go from there. Does that work for everyone?
Tara, I wonder if one thing that maybe you could do in the interim is ask the mayor's office to look at the equal rights ordinances in Madison and Milwaukee and see what they think from their end, the viability of a complaints process that those cities would look like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great idea.
Puppy agrees.
Puppy disagrees. Puppy seems very unhappy with the idea of looking at Madison cards.
Andrea, do you know, do you know if we'd go to legal for that?
Yes, we would, and I've also pulled those up before, so I think I have them saved. So we could do that. I'll run it past Joe before we run into legal, but I'm pretty sure it would go to legal. I'll get back to you though. I'll double check with Joe to be sure.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Yeah, I think that would be really helpful for us, and then we can discuss that at the next meeting and add that to the agenda. Okay, any other comments, questions, or suggestions? And of course, if you guys think of it along the way, you can definitely email Andrea or I, or me, and we'll add that to the agenda, or we'll find some space to discuss it. But if no one has any other questions, I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, which is just the chair update. Oh, sorry, actually, before we move on, can I get a motion to move this agenda item into the next meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on to agenda item F, and informational chair update. So I don't really have much, but I do want to mention that MLK Day is coming up, and I know last year we talked about doing some type of declaration. So I do have a meeting in with the mayor to talk about what that looks like, and if we're able to do that, how soon they need it and information. And then Stephanie and I, we have, so Stephanie is in charge of the visibility initiative, and she has a few ideas. So I'm going to set up a phone call with Commissioner Guzman, and we're going to discuss how that looks like for this year. And then, I don't know if you guys saw, but this past December 2024, it was announced that Green Bay, and I know Andrea brought this up too, but Green Bay did receive 100 points. So that's the maximum points for the Equality Index. However, I'm going to set up a meeting with the Human Rights Commission or Coalition to see what the next steps are. After you reach 100, obviously that's not the end of the work, right? So I want to see what else we can do to continue creating a safe and equal space. And then my last announcement is City Center Lofts. That's the lofts downtown that we toured. They are open for applications. So if you guys know of anyone, please send it their way, and please share their information. And the last thing, I just wanted to kind of open up the floor just to see if there's any other announcements from the commissioners or any questions.
No updates. I have one question though. For the visibility report, do you think that we're gonna have to eventually run that stuff by legal as well though? Some of the things on it? Like, is that something that we're gonna have to eventually do? Because some of it, like, I feel like some of the stuff is a little, it relates to the ordinance. I'm wondering if there's a way to like do them together almost. Because I feel like there was some red tape with some of the ideas that I brought up and I tried to get research on. So I almost feel like I want to discuss some of that stuff openly. So after our phone call, I would like to know if that's something I have to set up with, we have to set it up with legal or something. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. After you and I connect, then we can loop Andrea in,
Okay.
and Andrea and Joe can kind of tell us, direct us what the next steps are for that, what we need to do to achieve that.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, if there's no other comments or announcements, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good night. Happy New Year again.
That was cool.